Hello and welcome back to the Sporting Fan Podcast. Today I'll be speaking about refereeing in sport. Namely, I'll be speaking about the refereeing in the NRL rather than sport in general. This has been a hot topic within sports for many years, and there's always going to be debate on refereeing decisions. Some people say that was right. Some was like it's 50-50. Others say it's bad call. Depending on the team you support and what way the decision went. But today I'll be mainly looking at the NRL because it's been a hot topic for a lot of people. Have been complaining about it for a number of years now, and to be honest, to give you my opinion on it, it has been pretty average to out and out trash, rubbish, whatever you like to call it, for a number of years. There's always exceptions to that rule. There are a couple of referees that I thought were pretty good, but the refereeing as a whole, I think, has been pretty poor. Rugby union went through this about 15 years ago, where teams would play for penalties and the refs would always just blow a penalty, like, all the time. And but as time went on, more and more people were complaining and then just stopped watching. And then so they realised that they just can't be blowing penalties all the time. So they changed that and they said, okay, let's play. When it's blatantly obvious that they need to blow a penalty, they still do. But, they got rid of this milking for penalties. They got rid of all these milking penalties away. And then the game got a lot better, in my perspective. Because when I was in school, it was just penalty all the time in union. Whereas league, it was let go a lot more. And I just got to the stage where and I'm a rugby union nut. I grew up playing rugby union, loved playing it, but it just got to the stage where I could not watch professional rugby because I just found it so batshit boring. It was like worse than watching bloody grass grow because it was just, what was going to happen? Team kicks it downfield, get a penalty, kick for goal. And then it was just whoever kicked more penalties. And then rugby union were like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to, we're only going to blow, they reduce the number of penalties that were blown. And then all of a sudden there's more tries. But it's kind of gone the other way in league, whereas the game was more open and now it's a lot more teams are playing for penalties rather than playing for tries. And referees are allowing that. Allowing the team to do that, and always seem to blow penalties rather than letting the game go and try to get encourage team to score tries. And so I think the NRL really need to get back to what it was in the past, where do what union has done instead of just blowing penalty after penalty. One of the other problems that I have also noticed over the last, and this is not just over the last 2 or 3 years, I've noticed this over the last really more than 10 years, really. It's been going back to about 2008, 2009, around there, where the NRL clearly has its favourites and they want certain teams to win. And it seems like they go out, and it's not just one referee. And the reason why I say it's the NRL that does this is because there's certain referees. They might have certain biases towards certain teams because they might have grown up, supporting that team as a kid. But when it's all or they grow up hating that team, depending. So the referee either a lot for that team or against that team. But over the last, but when it's a lot of basically every referee blows for a particular team or against a team, it becomes quite noticeable. This is what this is basically the crux of what Todd Payton was saying over the weekend in the Roosters and Cowboys game. Because I can tell you right now, the first sin binning that the Cowboys received was, in my opinion, a fair sin binning. It was a professional foul. The second and third one was absolutely ridiculous. The second one was a late tackle. Penalty, yes. Should have been a penalty. Not sin binning worthy. Same as the high shot by Chad Townsend. Townsend's, the tackle did look bad, but I don't think it was worth a sin binning. And, but in saying that, the Roosters are not a favourite. But the referees tend to hate them. It's about the first time they only get about a couple of games a year where they seem to get, the rub of the green when it comes to the referees, and it's usually against the lower place teams like the Cowboys. That they get them when they come against the top teams. They seem to get the wrong end of the pineapple. When it comes to that, the wrong end of the stick. So, when it comes to the refereeing. But that was just one example. Another example is, I'm going to give a couple of examples where I'm talking about, I'm going to give a couple of examples here with the favoritism and why I believe it's gone back longer than just the last few years. It's gone back, 2009, back to at least 2009 that I can remember. Because when Wayne Bennett was coaching at the Dragons, and people are going to say, Sal Grace, Rooster supporter, lost the 2010 grand final. But if you actually go back and watch not only that grand final, but a lot of, and people are going to go, the Roosters lost 32-8. There was 3 tries in that 2010 grand final that should not have been awarded for St. George. It was absolutely rubbish refereeing. And it wasn't just that one game. Between 2009 to about mid-2011, St. George played something about 65 or 70 games. This is, and they were leading up to a regular season game against the Roosters, a non-Anzac Day game. And it was later in the year. It was around 19 or something, around 18, somewhere around there. It was about midway to it was in the second half of the season. And in that time, as Wayne Bennett had been coached since 2009, he'd coached about, 70, 65, 70 games, whatever it was. And they'd only lost something like 8 or 9 penalty counts in that whole time out of, it was, a little over 10% of games that they lost a penalty count. And this is when they had, and even in games where they had half, and basically the only times that they lost a penalty count is when they had basically the whole team out with representative duties, when they had something like 7 or 8 blokes out, and people will say, what was the average? I couldn't find the actual statistics on it, but I remember the average penalty count was something, and then because people are going to ask, was it at least close? Was it 9-8 or something, where it was marginal, in the games that they won? No, the average was something like 9-6 or 10-6 or something. It was 3-2 that they were winning the penalty counts, or even more than that, with the penalty counts. And it was so much more, and it was, than what it was. And I remember, the reason why I remember it is because it came out in the media in the week that they were leading up to the Roosters game. And this is one game that just sticks out of my mind because the games, a lot of people won't remember it, but I just remember it because the game's more remembered for what happened off the field than on it. Because it was the week that the Roosters had a booze ban in place between the St. George and Manly game. There were those 2 weeks they had the club said, we don't want any player drinking. And then Todd Carney, Nate Miles, and Frank Pulinala went out and got drunk. And Nate Miles was leaving at the end of the year, but they just cut the losses, the Roosters likely weren't going to play the finals that year, which they ended up not playing the final. They realised that about round 19 they weren't going to play finals. So they cut him loose. They cut Todd Carney loose. They stood down Frank Pulnala-Sala. They didn't cause any trouble. They were just, breach the no alcohol, club policy. And, all the gambling companies, all the experts, everyone was saying the Roosters had no chance. The gambling companies said in their head-to-head market the Roosters were at something like $7 from memory or something. And they also had Ben Cummins as referee, who is notorious for hating the Roosters. He was refereeing that game. And everyone was like, oh, yeah, Dragons will walk it in, Typical Ben Cummins, Dragons refereeing. Dragons are going to win the penalty count, and they're just going to run riot, win by like 30 points, whatever. Sure enough, they just penalised the hell out of St. George. And for the rest of the season, the penalty count for St. George, like I was saying, went from 10-6 to basically being even for the rest of the season. It was about, that particular game, the Roosters just got everything. They got so many penalties. And then the rest of the season, it was relatively even, the penalty count. And then St. George basically went from top. They were about first on the ladder, and they finished. I don't think they won another game for the rest of the season, or they may have won one game or something in the last 8 games, and they ended up finishing about 6 or something. And the NRL came out and said, oh, we don't have favourites. We just want the best to win. And a lot of people came out and said, how can a team go from being by far the most disciplined team in the comp to being they were conceding so many less penalties than everyone else, go to basically the same as everybody else in 1 week, and in that week is when they came out in the media that they were getting more penalties than everybody else and conceding less, and then the NRL try to go, oh, well, do you think we play favourites? And, are you saying we're corrupt? And, well, everyone else is like, well, how do you justify it then? It's either corruption or incompetence, but considering it's happening to only one team, people are saying it's obviously corrupt because, I wouldn't say obviously corrupt, but it looks like it's bordering on match fixing. And that they were trying to, get the Dragons to win. And then when it came out, all of a sudden it stopped. And then people were like, people weren't saying it was match fixing, but it did sure as hell look sus. And, and then the NRL couldn't come up with an answer, right? So, so it was quite an interesting time and all of a sudden, and then since then, St. George has, been, a lot of people said, oh, it's a Wayne Bennett effect, once he leaves clubs, they go downhill, and, he left when he left the Broncos the first time, actually both times he left the Broncos, they were they were left in a mess, and, when he left Newcastle, they were a mess. But I think St. George, it was a little bit different. I think it was a bit, paying, a little bit, the refereeing was a bit, sus, and then it stopped happening, and they didn't know how to win after that. And the other example I'm going to use is Souths in 2014. And people are going to go, oh, the 2 teams the Roosters hate the most, Souths and St. George that you're using. But forgive me, I don't care. It was in 2014 when Souths won the premiership. Same situation as the Dragons. By far received the most penalties and conceded the less. At that time they hadn't won a premiership since 1971. So they obviously, I think they wanted a Roosters-Rabbitohs grand final, but unfortunately the Roosters lost the first week of the finals, which meant and South won, which meant they met in the prelim final rather than the grand final. But it was pretty clear that they at least wanted South in the grand final, if not winning it. And sure enough, they got what they wanted. South made the grand final and ended up winning it. So, you have to eventually ask the question, this looks sus. And they keep saying, oh, no, which I'll get into in a moment. But they just kept saying, oh, this isn't how we do things. The biggest problem that the NRL has is that there's absolutely no accountability for the referees. You can't say anything bad against them. It's got to be the only job on the planet where there's absolutely no consequences for poor performance. People that work on this is serious, and I'm speaking from experience here. People that work on the counter at Coles, Woolies, and Aldi seem to be held to a higher standard. When they're earning $18 to $25 an hour, they seem to be held to a higher standard of work than what the referees who earn $300,000 a year are. People go, talking through his ass here, but seriously, this is what I'm saying. If we weren't, when I was working at Aldi, right, if we did, if we weren't working fast enough, if we were mucking around, joking around, not doing our work properly and, constantly making mistakes, screwing up, we would be bloody hammered. We would literally, if it happened once, they'd be try to, get you up to stand. But if it kept happening, guess what? You're not doing that job anymore. They just said you're doing something else, and if you kept doing it, they'll give you this. They had a system where, basically, if you had, kept getting straight, they eventually get a warning, and then they try to push you out and terminate you. And not that ever happened, but, not in the stores I worked at anyway, but I did hear about that. But it did actually happen in other stores. And, that's the people that are earning $18 to $25 an hour. So they're not only going to be earning, 20 to 40 grand a year. They're earning held to a higher standard than a referee that is earning $300,000. And, customers can complain about the staff. Managers can complain about staff. People from our stakeholders can complain about staff. Yet, at a retail shop, yet you can't. An NRL coach or a player can't complain, or anyone within a club, any of the 16 clubs, whether it be the CEO or whatever, can't criticise the referees. Otherwise, they risk getting a $10, $20, or $40, $50,000 fine. And it's ridiculous. The refs earn 10 times the amount, yet they're held to a lower standard than what... And there's a lot higher consequences for poor performance for a referee than it is for... someone working at Coles and Woolies. Yes, if you, at Coles and Woolies or whatever, or Aldi, you're not doing your job properly, yes, the food might go off, but they'll chuck that out, so the people won't get sick. Or if something gets damaged, it gets chucked out, so people won't get sick. Whereas referees, there's literally tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not even more, millions of dollars, that a club can lose by poor refereeing. And that's what, and there's like that, and people go, oh, that's an exaggeration. It's not. Like, for example, if you're on the last regular season game and you need to win that game, whether it be for the minor premiership or to make the finals, say like you're ninth and you win, you're in the 8, or you win the minor premiership. To make the finals, you get prize money just for making the finals, where you don't get that money if you don't make the finals. So that's quite a lot of money. And it's even more if you win the minor premiership. You get more money. Then, like, what these people don't realise is that then there's a flow-on effect. If you make the finals, there's a big difference between finishing 8th and 9th. Like, look at people go, oh, you most times will finish, get knocked out first week. Well, they don't always, because, like, for example, the Cowboys in 2017 made the grand final from 8th place. The Warriors in 2008 made the prelim finals. Parramatta in 2009 made the grand final. So, there's each week you make more prize money. Then you also make, even if you do get knocked out first week, there's this sponsorship, and there's the you get more sponsors because you get an extra week. There's higher membership. There's, next season, at least for the first few weeks, you might have a higher crowd attendance. So you may, there's higher merchandise sales. So, there's quite a lot of money. So, the fact is they should be held to a much higher standard than what they are, especially at a higher level than someone that's working in a supermarket, which they don't seem to be. And and the thing is, I've seen, it's just so many people have gone, well, nothing will change, and because, and I agree, nothing probably will change simply because, the head of football at the NRL, Graham Annesley, says that it's, the players have a bigger determinant on the game rather than the refs. But because he actually goes, oh, I'm sick of the coaches complaining about the refs. It's not their fault. It's not the referee's fault that they miss tackles and make errors, and it's not the referee's fault that they make the interchange at the wrong time, and all this. But what he doesn't realise is that, a couple of shit decisions at crucial times have a massive impact on the game. And it could have an impact for the next 10 to 15 minutes on the game. I've seen so many, times where a player's just dropped the ball cold and it's been stripped, and there's being penalised for a strip, or the other way around. So the opposition gets good, whatever team the bad call goes towards, they could have good field position for the next 10 minutes. They might get 1 or 2 tries, but even if they don't score, the opposition in that next 5 or 10 minutes, the opposition gets tired. And it could have, because, they're not making as many meters as the opposition. They may only get 30-meter gains in a set, where the opposition's getting 50 and 60, and they're always peppering the line frequently. And then it has a back-end effect at the end of the game where they could, a close game could be, 14-10, and then the game could end up, 36-12 or 36-16 or something in the last 15 minutes. One of the teams could end up scoring 3 or 4 tries in the last 20 minutes, last 15 minutes, to 3 or 4 tries to 1. And there just doesn't seem to be accountability. While the head of football just keeps defending them, nothing will change. And they need to, I'm not like one just to just go, oh, the referee should just blow up. The coaches should just blow up about the referees at the end of the game if they lose. I'm not one of those people because not every game is because of that. Some are because, the team just played like shit. But, that Roosters and Cowboys game on the weekend, like I said, two of those signings were absolutely atrocious decisions. Like, the Townsend one was a joke, and the second one, I can't remember who the Cowboys player was, but it was I remember it was a late tackle, and Todd Payton had every reason to go out after that game and say, that was, rubbish refereeing. Like, it wasn't good enough. And I think he does have a point. Like, the higher teams do seem to get the rub of the green. And it also happened last year. Like, for example, the Roosters had a lot of players out, so everyone was expecting them to, just fade away. They ended up finishing equal fourth, but because of, Manly had superior for and against, Manly finished fourth, the Roosters finished fifth. And I still remember, there was two games in particular, and anyone that knows rugby league will know which games I'm going to talk about. It was a game against Parramatta early on in the year, and the game against South. People already know which game happened in both games, that know about the NRL. Basically, there was a knee in the back to Drew Hutchison, by Dylan Brown, and it punctured his lung. And, then they had the, Latrell Mitchell tackle on Joey Manu. And, the Joey Manu one was the Drew Hutchison one was a little bit different simply because that was a bunker, but it's still poor, which I'll get into Matt Checkin in a sec. It was this one, the Dylan Brown one on Drew Hutchison was actually, the bunker, which was an absolute joke. He was told by Matt Checkin, can you have a look at it? Matt Checkin said, I don't want to make a rush decision here. Can you check it? And he goes, yeah, sweet. Like, on what planet is kneeing a bloke so hard as he goes in to score a try? When has it ever been okay for a bloke to come in, unless your name is bloody Billy Slater, has it been ever okay for a bloke to knee a bloke so hard in the back that it breaks his freaking ribs and punctures his lung? I don't know what game he was watching. Like, he had that long to bloody cool on it, considering Drew Hutchison was rolling around on the ground in agony for a long time, that he goes, oh, I might need to have a second look at it. He goes, no, sweet. And everyone's gone, what? Like, even Matt Checkin was like, how the fuck do you think that is okay? And, even the other referees and touches are going, what? That's ridiculous. And then you had the Joey Manu one where he's damn near had his head taken off. And then it took and then Ashley Klein, who was the on-field referee, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, that was high. Everyone at the ground could see it was high. Unless you're, and everyone watching at home, unless you're a bloody stupid South supporter, because it seems like every bloody South supporter that I saw thought it was okay, but, other than them, everyone seemed to going, what planet? Because they keep saying, oh, what about Hargraves? What about Radley? Well, the fact is they weren't the one that did the tackle and they get suspended and penalised for it. So that's where the main difference is. And the thing was, it wasn't until Joey Manu got up and threatened to punch Mitchell in the face, and the Roosters basically said, "You either bloody send him off or we will," meaning that to Ashley Klein, meaning that they'll literally do the same thing back to Latrell Mitchell, deliberately hurt him. That they went upstairs and had a look at it, and then they sin binned him. Like, you know, it's an absolute and then Robinson came out after the game and said, you know, it's not good enough. You know, it's an absolute joke that, you know, several times, it's at least the second time that season where they've had someone severely injured, and then the referees originally say it's okay. It's not until, you know, later that they go, oh yeah, well, we might need to have a look at it. Like, what good does it do for the Roosters that, you know, Dylan Brown gets suspended for 4 weeks or whatever it was? You know, they've lost their 5'8". They're down to 16 players. He should have been sent off for the game. You know, Roosters, and then against South, they're down to centre because the tackle. It should have been a send-off. But, and then they fined Robinson for saying, oh, the refereeing's not up to standard, which, by the way, the NRL actually agreed with, because in the Parramatta game, they stood down all the referees, which I'll get to in a sec, and they made Henry and in the South game, they made Henry Pienaar stand down and basically told him he ain't ever come back, which basically meant you either retire or we'll sack you. And so they clearly agreed with him, clearly agreed with what he said, yet he still got fined. Because you can't possibly talk badly about our referees. It's just like, for fuck's sake. Like, he's just had two blokes get severe injuries. One of them ended the bloke's season, and Joey Manu, he missed the last few weeks. And the other bloke was out, Joey Hutchison was out for, 6 weeks, 8 weeks or whatever it was, mid-season, when they already had, several blokes out, like Luke Keary, Lockie Lamb was injured, and they had several other players out injured. What else did you expect him to say? The referees are doing, sweet fuck all about opposition players doing foul play against his team. And you think he's just going to go, oh yeah, sweet? Of course he's going to say, to be honest, he should have come out and said the referees are fucking cheating arseholes, is what he should have said. You know, they're a bunch of fucking incompetent morons who the whole lot should need to go back to referee school, and they should sack the whole lot of them. That's what he should have said. But I thought he was really restrained in what he said, and yet he still got a $20,000 fine. It was an absolute joke. And, he was really restrained in that. And then, but when they do have the accountability, half the time the bloody NRL blame the wrong bloke, and this is where I'm going to come back to that Eels and Roosters game with, the Drew Hutchison incident with Dylan Brown. Matt Checken saw the high shot on James Tedesco in the lead up to that. It's in the same play. James Tedesco, I think, was the one that threw the ball to Drew Hutchison, who went in to score. There was a massive high shot on James Tedesco, which originally no one picked up except other than Tedesco, none of the Roosters players even realised it was high, and he saw the knee in the back. No one at the ground realised the high tackle on Tedesco was high, except Checken. Matt Checken did the right thing and said, I don't want to make a rush decision. I don't want to make a decision based on the result. I don't want to make make a decision based on the emotion or the outcome. I wanted to have a second look at it. And then the bunker says the high shot wasn't okay. Put that on report, which was almost worth a sin binning. It was quite a bad shot. Looking back at our replay, but then he said it was on report, and then the back was fine. Yeah, they stood down all the referees and touchies. It's just like, well, wait on. Matt Checken wanted to get the decision right, so he didn't make a brash decision. He went upstairs to make sure they got the right decision. Yet he gets punished. So I'm not gonna be like this guy that just like shits on referees and said they're all shit, and like they all should be punished if they make a bad decision. No, they need to punish the right bloke. Matt Checken in that situation did his job. He did it right. He did everything right. He couldn't have done more than what he did. Yet he gets punished. He gets stood down. Admittedly, he was back in 2 weeks later, but he gets stood down for someone else's incompetence, which is ridiculous that he even had to bloody answer for that, let alone bloody get punished for it. Like, actually, I'll take that back. Like, yes, he probably should have like been questioned about it, saying like what happened, but so maybe he should have probably answered for it, but he shouldn't have been stood down. It wasn't his fault. You could clearly hear on the referee's mic what he said, and yet he was stood down. And like a lot of like supporters said, "Oh, they all should be stood down," but a lot of supporters actually said, "You need to blame the right bloke," and they didn't. In that situation, they didn't punish the right bloke, and now they've lost him as a referee. He stood down and said, "I'm jack of this." Like, I'm sick, because it wasn't a one-off thing. Like, he's been blamed for that much shit when he's been refereeing that, like, does he get it right 100% of the time? No, but no referee does. But the thing is, he gets it better, right. He referees the game better and he gets it right more often than any other referee in the game. And he got basically shafted and got basically pushed out and he said, "I've had a gut full of this. I'm sick of this bloody infighting bullshit that I get blamed for stuff that's not my fault." And now the NRL's lost probably its best referee. And yeah, so it's like, they keep the bad ones in, but yeah, like, I think what would have saved Chicken in that Parramatta game is if they had a system similar to what they have in rugby union. If they have a tackle like that, what they had on Tedesco and Drew Hutchison, in rugby union, if that happened in rugby union, what they do is they go up to, what they call the TMO, is a bunker or video ref in rugby league, but there's TMO in union. They go upstairs, they all look at it, they see it on the big screen. The head referee says, "This is what I'm seeing A, B, and C." For example, in the Tedesco, if it was a Tedesco one, I can see a bad high shot there. Dylan Brown one on Hutchison, clearly needed it back. My punishment is, maybe for the high shot because Tedesco was coming down with a tackle from behind. Maybe on report, the Dylan Brown one, 10 minutes in the bin or possibly a send-off. Does everyone agree with that? And then they bring the touchies in and they speak to the team, and there's with a discussion with the TMO. TMO goes either yes, no. Everyone, like the touchies and the referee, TMO goes, "Yes, I agree." "No, I don't agree. I believe it should be this." And if they don't agree, they go, "I believe it's this because A, B, and C." And you know how they get the decision. And you go, "Don't agree with it, but at least I know why they do it." Whereas, I think that would be a better system because I think it would get a lot of this crap out there's bad decisions. Like, do I believe that they'll get it right, completely right? No. But it'll improve it, to an extent where it's at least, people can accept a couple of bad decisions, not when it's multiple bad decisions week in, week out. And, anything to make the game, like the refereeing, better can't be bad for the game. It could only be a positive thing. And, so that's how I think the refereeing can improve. Because I think, like, for the first few rounds, I think of the captain challenges, something like 70 or 80, the first of this season, that is, 2022 season. The first few rounds, there was something like 70% of the captain's challenges were successful. So, like, that's a very high number for 70%. That means you're getting, like, on certain decisions, the referees are getting more wrong than they're getting right, which is quite concerning that they're getting that many wrong. Even if it's, only been 10 decisions, there's been 10 captain reviews over the first few rounds, which was a lot more than that. There was several, and this was opening, I think there was the opening 3 rounds, I think it was. It wasn't including this latest round. I think it was either the first 2 rounds or the first 3 rounds that 70% were overruled. And I remember going, fair income, like, if there's that many, like, there's probably been 40, 50 reviews and these, which means they're up over 30, 30 decisions wrong, around 30, 28 to 30 decisions at least wrong. That is a lot of decisions. 70% wrong is not good enough at that level. They should, but yeah, so, that's where I think that everyone has a look at it, and everyone, they wrote the video, and then they can all, anything to make the game better, right? That's my opinion, have everyone talk about it and then come to a unanimous decision and go from there. I'm interested to hear what you think on it. So please write a comment in the comment section, and if you don't, how you would improve it, what you think of the refereeing, if you think I'm being too harsh, being too nice, somewhere in between. And I would like to hear how you would improve it, because anything to improve the game, right? Because we all love rugby league. We all want it to be the best it can be, especially when it comes to refereeing. So, until next time, I hope you stay well and listen to my next podcast. Thanks for listening.